Alright, today we'll be talking about React Native and how you have to relate it to concepts found in React.js. Okay, so you don't really need to know React.js to actually code in React Native, but what you need to do is you have to know some concepts. So some main concepts are components, props, state, styling, and conditional rendering. We won't be covering conditional rendering today. So components are essentially parts of your app. So over here, there is like a story bar, and you can like scroll through like the stories of other people. That is one component. Down here there's a navigation bar. That's another component. All these buttons are components. And this whole this whole post section, this is also a component. This heart button, also a component. So components can be a lot of things, and they come in two types: functional components and class components. We'll be focusing on functional components today. So to code a functional component, what we want to do is we go through, we actually make a function, and we call this function as a native component in React, just like the same syntax. And this is you calling the function, and this is you creating your component. So let's try coding this. So let me make a new folder on my desktop and start a new Expo app. You guys can do this in Snack if you wish. Okay, so let's open my folder in terminal and npx expo create expo app. And at the same time, let me open my Android Studio and let's call our name my app. Okay, we'll wait for this. I'll open my virtual device as well. Alright, so now it's finished. Let's actually go into the my app directory. And let's open up VS Code for this directory. Alright, so put that over there. Let's put my phone over here. Let's close this. Alright, so now we have VS Code opened up in our directory. Let's actually start up our app and open it up on our Android emulator. Alright, so now it is going to open on that. So while it's opening on the Android, okay, yeah, I'd like to upgrade, why not? Alright, while it's doing that, let's actually clear out our app.js. Let's take out status bar. Okay, and let's take out the styles. Oh, what happened? Let's take out the styles without breaking it. Oh, this whole thing, yep. Alright, and let's take this out for now. So all we have right now is text view getting imported from React Native, and it's gonna, we have to take this out or we're gonna get an error. Alright, and I'll be back when this finishes. Alright, great, Expo is back. So now all we have is a plain app, right? Oh, what did I do? Oh, I accidentally closed it. Let me start it up again. Save this. Okay, it's gonna start up again. Alright, perfect. So as you can see, our text is up in the top left. Let's fix that real quick with a style. Ooh, this is a prop. We'll talk about this in a bit. So style flex one line. Oh, we have to put another bracket. Okay, flex one line content center and justify content center. Save that and align items center. Okay, now we're in the center. We can actually take out line content for now. Okay, so now we have our app.js. So the first part of our slides is talking about functional components. So to write functional components, we just define it just like a function. We put a return statement, and whatever's in a return statement is going to go exactly right here. So let's do that. So let's go code a functional component. Let's code it outside of our app function. So what's going to happen is we call it constant and we give our function a name. Let's call it my function. And my function always has to start with a capital or there will be an error. So that's how you create a function. Now let's make sure we have a return statement and make sure these aren't curly braces. These are round, very round braces. And in here we can literally do anything. We can display anything. We can make another view, and in that view we can make a text. For this text we can type, hey, my name is Reacher Day. And if we do this, nothing happens. We have to actually call my function. So let's call my function. So right next to text, let's go over here and call my function. To call my function, just like text and view, right? We imported these. These are React Native's core components. We can actually call my function. And we also have to have a closing tag for it, or we can just, make ourselves a closing tag right there, and we can save it. Now you can see, hey, my name is Ruger Day. It popped up. So that's completely fine, right? Now, the next part of this slide, is talking about props. So what are props? So props is short for properties. So essentially, if you think about how you code in Python and how you code in Java, right? You have functions, and those functions have arguments. You can you can put in arguments for age, for height, for grade, for a function named person, and those arguments can be used in the functional component. So this is relatively the same thing over here, where props are pretty much parameters where you feed arguments to, and you can use those props to actually code for your function. Alright, so here's some code. What happens is, as you can see before in our app, there is nothing in between these brackets. These are where the props go. So as you can see in this code, props is over here, and props is a parameter. Down here in function app, we're actually inside the first tag. We are actually writing a prop called name. Name is equal to 6 foot. So what happens is, once anything over here, anything to the right of height display inside this tag is going to go back into this props parameter, and from this props parameter you can actually call it in your return statement. So, or you can call it above the return statement if you have some logic going on, but you can call it anywhere in this function where you call it with a props dot and then whatever you named it down here, so dot name. So let's code this over here, and let's actually go like this. Now we have props, right? And let's see what we can do. If you don't want to say, hey, my name is Ruger Day, what you can do is you can say, hey, my name is, and then you can do props dot first name, and you can do plus, and then let's put a space, and then let's do props dot last name. And what that does is we can now we created two props, first name and last name. So what we can do now is write first name, and this equate it to John, and then let's see our last name, and our last name is equated to Pepper. Let's open this up. I guess the app crashed, but so now if we save this, because we put John and Pepper into here, it should display, hey, my name is John Pepper. So let's see when this loads up. Alright, as you can see, it has worked, John Pepper. So that's how you use props. You can use props for much more, like age. You can display age if you are over 15. If you're not, then don't display age. Something like that. Alright, so now I'd like to talk about React Native core components. Alright, before we talked about view and text. There's also some core components, other core components that we'll cover, such as image and button. But there's also a lot more core components, more than this. There's like 6 or 7 more. But these are the ones I think are the most useful, except this one. This one is literally just a spinning icon. Anyways, View text image button. You've seen view and text before. These are React Native's core components. What happens with these core components is in React Native, it's kind of special. It takes these components and it finds the native version for whatever device you're using. So if you're creating an app and you're using this view component is mapping to iOS's UI view, and it'll display on the iPhones with UI view. On Androids, it's going to be Android.view. For online devices, like on websites and Chromebooks, they're going to be using divs. So if you guys are familiar with divs, these are basically just like a structure where you put everything in. They're pretty much containers of where you put your stuff. So text is, we've seen it before in these slides. Text, you wish this was your height, and then they put in their height. So text is basically just for displaying basic text. And the cool thing about these components is you can actually style these components, and you can make them look real nice. And you can make your own components using these components, and you can reuse that over and over. So what happens is image is a core component, which is also very much customizable. I listed some modes you can put it in, where it allows you to display images, and you can also make a background image, which is not actually this core component. The core component is called image background, and you can make it your app's background. So this button is just like, oh, you click it, and there's this prop called onClick, and because there's a prop called onClick, you can actually start up a function, or you can start up an event, which will cause something else to happen. So let's actually use these core components with props. So as you can see, in this app, there is a view component, and we have a style connected to that. We'll talk about this later. I don't really show the style sheet here. I'll show that later. What happens is we're using a view component, a text component, and what happens is we're using these view components, components, and image components with different properties. So for view, in between the arrows, we have view, and then we have a style, and it goes to a style sheet. With this other view, we have nothing connected, so we aren't using any props over here. Text, we're not using any props. Over here, however, again, we're using a view, and we have the prop style. For text, we have the same prop style, and we're editing the font size. For the image, we have two props, style, and we also have source. In our style prop, we have height and width defined, so we can actually define height and width for the image. But for the source, where are we getting it from? That's also a prop. That's a property of the image component. So we have to put in where we got it from. For us, we put a URI. We can also put a direct image from a folder in your directories. So let's try coding some core components. So over here, let's bring back our Android emulator. Alright, let's say we wanted to put an image down here. So for me, I would put an image. Let's actually take the stuff out of my function, and let's make it an image function. So let's rename this image function, and let's rename this image function. Now we can take out these props, and we can actually specify height is equal to, and let's actually put a height. Let's put 300 pixels, and let's do width is equal to 300 pixels. And by doing that, we are going to code an image with these following props. So to get image here, we have to import image from up here. So let's write image up here. So now we have this. We have an image, but there is no image displayed because we don't have a source for it. So what we have to do is add source in the props area of the image, and let's actually double curly brackets that and URI, and then let's put a link for our source. So let's go over here and let's find a nice image to put. Cool images. Alright. None of these look cool. Alright. This one is pretty cool. So let's actually open this. Open image in new tab. And let's copy this link. This is a URI. We can use this in our own code. So we can just copy and paste that link into here. and boom. As you can see, we still don't have an image. This is because height and width are not defined. Now, right currently, they are known as 0 pixels by 0 pixels. What we have to do is we have to use our style component, and we have to give our image a height and a width. So we just write height, and then remember this prop that we put over here, height of 300, width of 300. We can actually put props.height over here, and we can actually, oh, what's going on here? Props.height, yep. Alright, there's an error here because we have curly brackets around this. Do not put curly brackets around that. So height, and then over here, a width is props.width. Alright, so now we wrote 300 over here, so this 300 should go right here, and this 300 should go right here, and that will act as a height and width for this whole entire image. So let's save it and see what's going on. There you go. Now we have our octopus, 300 pixels by 300 pixels. Alright, so now we've coded React Native core component with props. Let's move on to our next part, which is states. States is something where like it's okay. So properties are stuck. They are one. Like you define it one time and you can't change it. States you can actually change by either clicking a button, or if something happens in your app, you can use that event to actually change one of your states. So states have two parts to it. They have state, which is your actual variable, and they have set state, which is like how you change your variable. And they also have like a default state, which is like what your state is initially when you open the app or when something happens. It's what it is set as initially. So over here, let's actually create a text input. Text input is another React Native core component. And what happens is, let's take this text input and let's actually write text in it, which is going to go back into here. Hey, my name is, and it's going to write our name. So for me, I wrote Patrick Star in this text input, and it's going to go back into this sentence. Hey, my name is Patrick Star. So this happens all instantaneously, meaning we type it, and as soon as we type one letter, it's going to pop up over there. Now, how do we do this? Well, we have to use states. So in this code, you can look at it, and you can see, oh, we have a constant over here. We have a constant, and there's a bracket, and it's called useState. So what is this? So the first variable, show text. This is your actual variable. This is what you're going to use to actually put into your code, and you write, hey, my name is show text, just like we did over here in this text component. The second part is set show text. So set show text is the way you get to actually change your text. So what we're doing over here is we're to this text input, right? There is a property which we can change called onChangeText. And onChangeText just changes, or takes a function and puts any text that we write in this box as an argument to this function. So what happens is in this text input, it's really set show text bracket, and then whatever we put in this box, and a close bracket, and that feeds it back into this constant. Over here, useState, there's a quotation. We can actually put anything in this quotation, and it's going to be the initial value over here. So if you wrote, hey, my name is Bob Marley, it would be Bob Marley in this square, and also be Bob Marley over here. And you can of course erase this and write your own text, but that's just what it's going to be initially. So let's actually code this, and let's open up our VS Code. Let's code this. So let's put this back over here. Let's get rid of our image function, and let's just code this in directly in our app function. So let's get rid of this, or we're going to have an error. Okay, so we're back to our default screen. Alright, so instead of open app.js, let's write, hey, hey, I'm not that tall, but if I was, I would like to be like to be, and let's make it so we have um, a function over here, or not a function, a variable over here which changes. So for now, let's just put a 6 foot or 6 foot. Okay. Hey, I'm not that tall, but if I was, I would like to be 6 foot. Perfect. So over here, let's actually import something from React called import, and let's actually import useState from React. Okay, so this is pretty much how we will create our variables. So over here in the app function, we want to create our constant, and then we would want to put square brackets because we're going to have two different variables. We're going to have show height, and we're going to have it set show height, and we're going to equate that to useState, and our initial value is going to be, oh, I want to be 5 foot. That's what our initial value is going to be, right? Don't forget to put the semicolon. Alright, so now we have our variables. So now over here in this import statement, let's import text input, because that's what we're going to use to make our little box which we write into. So over here, in this return statement, in this view, let's actually make a text input, and in this text input, like if we save it, we can't really see it. It's there, but we can't see it, right? So let's actually style it a little, right? So style equals and the double curly brackets. We'll understand that a little later when I explain style sheets. And we're gonna put height for the style, like the actual box, and we're gonna put margin of 12 and border width of 1 and padding of 10. Right? Now we can actually see our box, right? Currently, we can write into it, but it doesn't do anything. So what we want to do is we go over here into text input, right? And they have different props for text input. The two props we're going to use is onChangeText. And what onChangeText does is it'll take the text, whatever text is in here, and it'll feed it to a variable. So set show height, right? This is the same variable over here. Remember what I said, it'll take this set show height, and whatever this show height is, it'll set whatever we change it to. So whatever name this is, FDSAF, right? This will go into set show height, and it'll make the show height variable equal to that. So if that's going to happen, let's also change the value of the actual box. So let's actually change the value to show height. And what that does is anything in this box is going to equal to anything that we write. So let's actually save it and see what's going to happen. So the initial value is 5 foot, right? And if we erase this and we can write 6 foot, still nothing's going to happen. 7 foot, nothing's going to happen. So what happens if we want to use it in our text component? So to use in our text component, instead of writing 6 foot directly, hard coding it, let's actually put our show height, because this is our actual variable, show height. So now whatever you write in here, 9 foot, 10 foot, 112 feet, why not, right? Now we would like to be 112 feet, super tall. Anyways, that's exactly how you use props, exactly how you use states in your app. So obviously it's a little messy, right? Look, in text input, we have the style, right? In the style we have a bunch of variables which we define, and over here in this view we have flex, one, justify content center, align item center. What if we don't want this in our actual code? These are just to make our code prettier. So what if we don't want this in our actual code? So what we can do is we can make a style sheet. So over here, everything you can see over here, style. It's a little messy, and we can actually define a style sheet, and we can just write styles.baseview, styles.whatever. So over here, this is my style sheet. On the left is my styles sheet code. So what happens is I made a constant named stylesheet.create, and I'm creating the style sheet. And for the style sheet, I give names. My names are baseview, container, text, and image. For these, I can actually name some properties. Flex 1 align items, which is the center, justify content, which is in the center as well. So that just makes our stuff centered. Now we have container, which is flex 1. This just puts everything in into a flex box, which we'll talk about. And pretty much we're just like putting properties to these names. But what these properties do is we can actually assign them to our components. And when we assign them to our components, they actually apply to all the components and make them look nicer. So for our big view, our big container, we have a base view, and that is pretty much this whole thing. And what happens is for this base view, we make it in a way where everything is centralized. For this second one, we have pretty much the same thing, except we didn't choose a background color. So this is styles.container, and everything has a margin of 10. So this has a margin of 10, this has a margin of 10, this has a margin of 10. So, and then for the text, we have styles.text. What happens for styles.text is we have font size of 25 and it's italic. We defined it right here. Font style italic, font size 25. Same concept over here. Styles.image. We actually defined our height and width over here, and we can just put it over here in the styles.image, and it'll actually make it 250 by 250 pixels. Okay, so remember those double curly brackets before? So there's one curly bracket here, and then once you call styles.baseview, you'll go into this variable, call baseview, and you see this is where our second curly brackets come from. That is why we have to put two curly brackets if we're directly implementing into our code. Alright, so let me show you how to create a style sheet. So what you want to do is first you want to import Stylesheet from React Native. Stylesheet from React Native. And we always create style sheets at the bottom of our code because if we have a lot of styles, we don't want to be scrolling all the way down to actually see our real code. Alright, so let's create some, let's bring this back and let's create some styles. So to create some styles, let's actually just name it constant, and then we're gonna, usually it's always called styles, and then we just name the style sheet dot create, and then we put a bracket and then a curly bracket. Okay, in style sheet dot create, we want to name, we can put any name. So for our first one, for our first view, we're just going to call it container. So container is going to be, and those are curly brackets, and we're going to say, oh, whatever we have in here. So just copy and paste this, put it in here, and let's remove all of this. Right, now we have styles and it's empty. So what we want to do to actually put this container in here is we write styles, our variable which we wrote down here, dot container. It's as simple as that. So now we have our is pretty much CSS, and we can just put that directly into this view. Now as you can see, nothing changed. But if we want to say, oh, let's put it on the left side, right? Oh, and justify, let's put it on the flex start. We'll actually talk about that. Let's reload, let's rebundle our app. It's not left, it's flex start. So we'll see everything go on. That app crashed. Let's open it up again. Everything's going to be on the left side. And the same thing over here, we can actually put flex start, and that would put everything on the top side. See, top left. But if we change this to flex end, this will be on the bottom side, bottom left. So that's how it's a little bit intro to a flex box. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna create styles for everything else. So let's do text style, and let's say, oh, our font size is going to be, I don't know, 40, which is huge. And this font weight, we're gonna make this bold, so we can actually write bold, which is also equal to 900. Okay, and we have text input. So let's actually write text input as one of our style components, and let's put everything we put over here in the styles. So there you go, and let's take this out, and boom, there you go. So now, oh, we need a comma down here. Don't forget the commas. Now if we save this, we can actually see. Let's make this a little bit nicer to see. Let's put this back to the center so it looks nicer. So center over here and center over here. Let's actually save this and everything looks fine. So if we change these over here, 22 margin, right? It'll actually change over here. So as you can see, we're writing over here. If we change these, this should get bigger, and this padding should get bigger. Oh, but it doesn't get bigger, and you know why? It's because we didn't assign our styles. Don't forget to do that. Take this out, take this out. Styles dot text input. There you go. Now it got bigger, but now our text is a little messed up and it's a little weird. So let's change it back to what we had before. 50, 40, 12. That's perfect. Now let's take everything here and rename it styles dot text input. And for this one too, for text, let's call it styles equals styles dot text. And now if we save it, perfect. And now anything we write here, it's gonna go over there. So I would like to be 6, 3. Perfect. So that's pretty much all for today. We went through props, we went through components, we went through states, we went through styling, and we will eventually get to conditional rendering, which is pretty much the logic of how you want to show your components. If you want to show your components, if you're on iOS, if you're on Android, what do you want to show specifically for those devices? And yeah, that's pretty much all. So bye guys.